Because our children are being bombarded with so many sexual thoughts or images or temptations and problems, many parents are worried. And so the question I wanted to ask you is, what is probably the best thing or the most helpful thing parents can do to protect their children against these dangers in our lives today?
Well, I believe one of the most powerful buffers and protections for our youth is to teach them healthy sexuality in the home, starting early in a layered, stepwise fashion, and to teach that plainly and boldly, just as we've been counseled. There are some wonderful resources available to help parents that may feel uncertain or apprehensive as to how best to do that, but it needs to be done. It just so needs to be done. We know that many parents are shying away from it, unsure of how to go about doing that, and our youth are suffering because they're growing up in a vacuum of toxic messages and too few positive messages that are within the gospel framework.
Wonderful.
And we just need to have those conversations, and we need to have the relationships to have those conversations. The parenting experts use the term, they make the distinction between cocooning and pre-arming, right? And too many, I think, we're hoping to cocoon them, right? And that's all with the idea that we think we can keep that away from them. First off, we can't do that with a topic like sexuality because it's also inside of them, right? It's not just what's outside, it's also what's inside. So how do you cocoon someone from themselves? But then also to understand and be prepared that that's what is in the world. And how do we sort through these messages? And I think one of the key things we want to do in that process is how do we teach healthy sexuality so that they don't just get negative messages? If not, we may save them from one problem, but create later problems for them. It's if they, it helps them avoid pornography in their teenage years, but then if they can't talk to a spouse about sexuality in their marriage years, we want to have that healthy sexuality approach, so then the negative things that we're trying to save them from or help them with, they understand it. They understand that it's a counterfeit to what they really need.
Right.
And Ben, we also know that children who have stronger relationships with parents, siblings, where they're more satisfied with the relationships in their lives, they are at less risk for problems with pornography, with immorality. And so I think even if that particular subject, we want to encourage parents to discuss that head on. But outside of that, even working on the relationships, making sure that our homes are places that are open, honest, frank, and nurturing, that goes a long ways in buffering our children from temptation and problems in their lifespan.
Wonderful.
It's important.
Well, so my next question is, what are some specific tips or ideas that parents can use to start these conversations or to have them? I mean, what does that look like? What can I do?
Well, some will be the natural starting points, something that'll come up from a question of a child or something that'll come up from an experience they've had. Others will be presented to us, so there'll be something like a scene in a movie or a commercial. And as a parent, we have to be proactive to kind of take advantage of those opportunities. It's easy to let them slide by, and rather than say, hey, what do you think about the way that person was dressed? What do you think about what that conveys about relationships? And then I also think we as parents have to embrace